Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/ProRevenge. In today's episode, veteran mechanic taking advantage of active duty military and retirees messes with the wrong person. After that, try to prank me. Good luck getting your camper back with a lot of cash. Finally, desks are for plans, not paperwork. Before we get into today's episode, remember to subscribe so you never miss another of our videos. Veteran mechanic taking advantage of active duty military and retirees messes with the wrong person. This happened back in 2002 on Marine Corps Recruit Depot, San Diego. I was stationed down the way at 32nd Street Naval Base for my military occupation specialty school and was a new Lance Corporal, E3, at the time. I had a 1994 Dodge Spirit with 180k miles or so and I'd just driven it across the country. I bought it a few days before leaving KS at an auto auction. A couple weeks into my school it died, at the gate, next to the sentry. After an initial freakout that I was a suicide bomber and the subsequent search of me and my car, everyone calms down and they help push my car to the top of the hill so I can coast down the other side and into the auto repair shop parking lot, which thankfully went without incident. Before I go in I call my dad and then his cousin. My dad knows a ton about cars and his cousin is a mechanic with his own very successful shop, like a dozen work bays, and they handle everything from regular cars to farm equipment to semis. I know a fair bit about cars on my own, but he knows everything. Between us we decide it looks like the distributor or the distributor cap is the issue. My dad's cousin says it's a common issue on spirits from this time and recommends I get it fixed here by a real mechanic. Now at this point it's important to note his shop did a very thorough once-over for me after I bought the car and gave me good notes on the condition of the car in writing, from his shop. I go in and talk to the guy at the counter. They're not too busy and pull it into a bay and run their diagnostics, same thing. Distributor cap. Cool. I get the services agreement saying they'll replace it and call me if they find anything else. I hear nothing until the end of the week when they call and say my car is ready. When I get there they present me with a bill for like $1,400. Wow. Just wow. Now my heart has stopped beating and I say something about that being a lot for a distributor cap. The guy who owns the place, I find out he's a veteran from way back, breaks off talking to a master sergeant, MSGTE8, and comes over to talk to me. He starts telling me about how it was much worse than they originally thought and they ended up having to replace my radiator, plus hoses, and my timing belt and a head gasket. I'm still in shock and say something like the head gasket was fine 2 weeks ago and so was the radiator and the timing. He puts his hand on my shoulder and tells me I don't know what I'm talking about, BC they've been waiting to fail for a long time now. I'm confused now and say that's not possible. I bought it 2 weeks ago and he cuts me off and says I was sold a complete lemon and I should have had it checked. He says he felt bad for me and this should have cost over $2,000, but he cut me a deal and he can work with me in an installment plan but will have to charge me interest. Now I'm suspicious and starting to get pissed and I say the only repair I authorized was a distributor cap and they should have called me before doing anything else, and I start to explain I've got paperwork from the inspection I had done that said those other things were fine. I'm going to get it from the car and the master sergeant grabs me by the arm and starts telling me I'm being ungrateful and disrespectful to a respected mechanic and business owner and asks me if I'm implying he's cheating me. Every time I try to open my mouth he cuts me off and keeps telling the owner not to worry, he'll make sure this young pup pays what is owed. He's threatening to take me over to admin and have my pay docked. Now I'm angry and a bit scared. Another Marine intervenes and says that's a little extreme and to let me say my piece. I get permission to get into my car to get my maintenance history, which includes an oil change, the inspection documentation and the original quote for the distributor cap work. At this point there's a crowd of customers and some other passers-by. The owner of the garage and master sergeant are in full theater mode talking about how I'm not appreciating the huge help they've been and I'm trying to get out of paying for work I asked for. Now I'm mostly just pissed. I come in and the master sergeant cuts me off and tells me to be careful how I talk to his friend. I ask the master sergeant if he's going to let me speak or keep interrupting me while I'm in a private conversation with a business owner. I ask him if he owns part of the shop, no, and ask why he's so interested in not hearing a Marine out. Then I get out the original statement of services and say the distributor cap is all I agreed to. I also ask why he didn't call me and he says he called my barracks several times and left messages, including ones telling me the car was undrivable until the repairs were made, so he went with the lowest cost option to get me back on the road. Oops. I say, that's interesting. The only number I gave you is my cell phone and I don't have any messages or even attempted calls until the previous evening when they left a message that my car was ready. I show everyone my call history, including the captain who's very interested and standing quietly by. The master sergeant has backed off and the captain is quietly talking to him off on the side. Now the owner is backpedaling a bit and saying he was thinking of a different customer but he's already made the replacement and has to charge me for the work. Then I pull out the stuff from the inspection and it has some fun little statements in it. Statements like, timing belt good, Timing good. Check again in 30k miles. Radiator appears to be recently replaced. All hoses new in last 6 months. Nothing on the head gasket, but there's a statement that there are no leaks in that area, which was why he said he had to replace it. I say he can put all of my original stuff back on because all I'm paying for is the distributor cap work. He gets red-faced and starts demanding I pay for the labor, and he can't put things back on because they were too badly damaged in the removal process. Now some old retired guy chimes in from the back and asks what kind of mechanic damages things when they take them apart. The owner drags out my radiator and there is a giant hole in one side that looks like it was stabbed with a crowbar. Now a couple other people, locals, are questioning past situations where he helped them out with repairs they didn't know they needed. The master sergeant tried to walk off and a colonel and a sergeant major in civilian attire post him to the side for a later conversation. The captain pulls me aside and asks to see the info I have and to see my phone again and steps behind the counter to photocopy it all. He has a truly evil grin. Turns out he's a prior enlisted former infantry marine who became an officer after going back to college. He has suspected this shop of being crooked for a while but never had enough proof. He's on the commanding general's staff and they were looking into complaints from permanent personnel and retirees in the area. The owner is sweating bullets now. I only pay for the distributor cap and get a statement that says my balance is zero so he doesn't try anything in the future. The captain takes me to dinner and gets my info and basically a statement from me of what happened. After dinner he takes me back to his office while he types up something for me to sign about the whole incident, and I call Verizon to get them to fax over the incoming outgoing calls from my number from the past week. He explains that the master sergeant has been steering a lot of customers to his buddy and they suspect he's getting kickbacks. The captain and several others had been taking their cars there for months to try to catch the guy doing what he did to me. The master sergeant sealed his fate when he started threatening to take my pay. They suspected he was getting kickbacks or favors in exchange for hooking up his buddy. Now he has the justification he needs to formally look into the master sergeant. The captain was thrilled and bought me a six-pack for using up so much of my Friday evening. I wasn't around long enough to see the outcome, but when I left there were auditors from base services going through the business with a fine-tooth comb and it was a legal matter. Once something like that gets started, it probably means a business and the owners will get kicked out of the on-base location. The base owns the building and the owner leases it. He and his business would also end up blacklisted as a place known for taking advantage of service members. Most commands give this out to people who check in so no one patronizes them. It still boggles my mind that one veteran would try to use that status to take advantage of others. Or that a senior Marine would do that to other Marines. I know there are people out there like that, but having the shared common background we do, I expect better. Try to prank me. Good luck getting your camper back with a lot of cash. So, a friend of ours, I'll call Bill, bought a piece of property next door to us. He had a bad car accident in November and lives an hour away. He made me a legal agent of the property, which means I have almost as much power as he does. Think property manager. It has a small house on it that is unoccupied, but I keep an eye on things. He bought the property only because next to the house is a big asphalt parking lot. It used to be a lot for a small used car company. His reasoning was that during the bad winter months he could park equipment and trucks from his other companies there. So he also had me put up huge no parking. Violators will be towed at owner's expense signs all around it. Moving on. So Sunday I'm elbow deep into an RC submersible when my wife bursts into my study, yells for me to listen to something. I take the phone and who is doing a live video? Karen. Karen was talking about how she was going away for a few days. This was Sunday morning, because she was so stressed out from always giving people advice and helping them through their problems, etc. And then she mentioned, again, why my wife told me. She talked about how she parked her 46-foot fifth-wheel $35,000 camper next door to me, and seeing Bill was unreachable this week, I would have to look at it for the next 3 days as a reminder that she is not only smarter, but 10 moves ahead of me, and I'm because I wouldn't loan her a truck and it cost her money to rent one. Turns out she told her husband, who was gone during the week for work, that she had Bill's permission to put it there, so early Sunday morning he towed it over there. I was pissed. She has a tendency to lie, so I went outside, and there it was. Parked right there, in the middle of the lot was her camper. I actually smiled because I had a perfect plan. As being a manager of the property, I also had a right to have any vehicle towed off there. Including that one. I had two options: call Garage A owned by a nice guy, doesn't charge the state maximum for the tow and storage fees. Explain what happened and he might cut you a break. Then there is Garage B. He doesn't care if he has to tow your car 15 feet, he is charging you the max and always charges the maximum storage fees. So you're damn right I went with Garage B, called the guy, gave him my name, told him I managed the property and bring a fifth wheel. He had it gone in less than a half hour. This is the best part yet, my friends, I didn't tell her it was towed until yesterday morning. Yes, I waited from Sunday afternoon till Tuesday morning. Yesterday morning she is on Facebook live streaming from her car talking about how I was going to go visit her camper for another laugh. Then I got on live, my wife sent her a message to get on my live stream like now and post the link to my page. When she was viewing I said this. Hey Karen. Hope you had a wonderful time. I have to tell you something, I had your camper towed. With me being the property's manager and Bill being unavailable I had to have it towed. We can't let people think they can just park on there illegally. XYZ Tow has the camper. I was going to call you Sunday but you seemed so stressed out that I thought you deserved the break. I mean the camper is safe, that's all that matters, right? Well, Facebook lit up like a Christmas tree. As I had hoped, those watching her stream followed because, well, they were curious too, and then the messages started. A few condemned me, but most were supportive. Some thought it was about time someone showed her that she wasn't all-powerful and no one was scared of her. Then it went quiet. Now a normal person might be pissed, but understandable, but she went the wounded Karen route. That afternoon she got back on again. She was crying, fake crying, about how it was going to cost her over $2,000 in fees because her husband wouldn't be back till Friday to tow it back, and could someone please do it for her? A bonus I was hoping would happen, and that if she started a GoFundMe page would people donate to help her pay the fees. The answers to that were between no and funk no, but hey, she didn't threaten to sue me, at least, right? Side note, Bill is unavailable this week, except to certain people, which I am part of. I called him and told him the whole story. His answer was exactly good. You want to play games, then be prepared to lose, the camper is still there. No one volunteered to get it. A few said they would for gas money, but she tried to play it off as it would be helping her and she owed so much in fees and that she would owe them a favor. A favor no one could collect on because she has nothing to bargain with. Desks are for plans, not paperwork. At my previous job, I had a desk that was next to the fridge and microwave. People congregated there while they were making their lunch, and sometimes just because they happened to meet each other next to my desk while they were both walking up the length of the office and stopped to have a conversation. This meant that the end of my desk became the dumping ground for the stuff that people were carrying but didn't want to hold while they had their conversations or waited for their lunch to heat up. There was one specific co-worker, I'll call her Janet, who did this every single time she was next to my desk. There were a multitude of other reasons not to like her: racism, xenophobia generally, sexism, and just god-level pettiness, to name a few, so this just stoked the dislike. It didn't inconvenience me hugely most of the time, but I really hated the fact that people dumped stuff on the end of my desk while I was sitting there working without even asking, is it okay if I leave this here for a moment? Plenty of people would put stuff down then walk off without it, meaning I had to either deal with it being there in my way or chase them down to give it back to them. To counter this, and to annoy Janet in particular, I decided to completely block up that end of the desk, solely to stop people putting stuff on it. Over a few months, so as to not arouse suspicion, I bought houseplants and brought them to work, arranging them on my desk in various positions. Eventually I had created a complete fort of houseplants that covered the end of my desk. You could see Janet get visibly confused as she went to dump stuff on the end of my desk but found a jungle in the way. Eventually she ceased stopping by my desk altogether. Ultimately this has backfired on me as I ended up developing a houseplant habit, and now every surface I have is covered in greenery, but it was a small price to pay for desk autonomy. If you made it to the end, thanks for watching. And I recommend you click on one of these videos,